Hello everyone, and welcome to Effortless Mastery. Here yet again, we'll be talking, we're still on our membrane physiology playlist. So we'll be continuing from where we stopped. In our last video, we made mention of resting membrane potential, which is the membrane potential or the potential difference across a cell membrane at rest. So when I look at the potential difference at rest, we call that resting membrane potential. The big question now is, what happens to a cell? In this case, remember we were talking about excitable tissues. What happens to an excitable tissue who was already at a particular resting membrane potential when a stimulus is brought? The response of a cell to a stimulus is either graded or action potential. Either it is graded potential or action potential. What will make us know which of them would now be the strength of that stimulus? If this stimulus is up to threshold, if it is up to threshold, the response the cell will have would be action potential. But if it is below threshold, the response the cell will have is called graded potential. So very quickly, what is graded potential? Graded potential is the change in membrane potential due to a stimulus that is below threshold and it does not spread along. So listen very carefully again. Graded potential is a change. Remember that the cell was at a particular potential called resting membrane when it was at rest. But due to the introduction of a stimulus which was below threshold, the response we have is called graded potential. So I would say that it is a change in membrane potential due to a stimulus that is below threshold and it doesn't spread along. Now, other key characteristics about graded potential, which is important we know, is that the response is localized. So like we said, it does not spread, so it is localized. So that is what to know. Then usually, if a graded potential keeps happening over time, it can summate to give us action potential. It can summate to give us action potential. That is adding up to give action potential. Now, I'll just give a small scenario. So for example, if someone should walk up to you out of nowhere and land a slap on you, that is a stimulus that should evoke anger. So all of a sudden, you will burst into anger. You should be angry. Why did you slap me? Whenever a stimulus is great enough to cause you to react, or to really react, that's action potential. But imagine someone coming to pat you on the cheek. What happened? So it might not evoke anything, but at least your response could be that you shift back. That's graded potential. But if the person keeps doing it over time, it can summate to make you get angry, which is action potential. All right, so beyond that, so the next thing will now be, what else can we see? What is the main difference between graded potential and action potential? What are the main differences between graded potential and action potential? Number one is that when I look at the case of graded, the stimulus is below threshold. But when I come to action, the stimulus is up to threshold. So it's either at threshold or above threshold. Other differences we can have is that for graded potential, it doesn't spread. It doesn't spread along. But action potential will spread along. What other difference can I have between graded and my action potential? Another difference I can have between graded and action is that for graded potential, it can summate. So it can add up to give you action potential. But action potential is already the end product. I'm already angry. There's nothing you can do that can make me more angry than I am. So in that case, it doesn't summate. It does not summate. What other differences can we have between graded and action potential? This one, the stimulus is localized. But for this other one, the response rather is generalized. So while I respond locally to this, I respond generally to this. Now, other than that, this action potential obeys all or none rule. So as far as stimulus is up to threshold, it will respond fully, all or none, all or none. But then this guy does not obey that. So his own, he doesn't obey that rule. He does not obey that rule. Whereas this one obeys all or none rule. Then we make mention of some other things, like for example, in action potential, we can have refractory period. But here we can't have refractory period. What other difference do we have between action potential and graded potential? Another difference we can add to this is that action potential is due to opening of voltage gated channels, whereas graded potential is due to opening of ligand gated channels. Now, any other difference we can add here is that graded potential is also called receptor potential. Some books even call it generator potential. Usually it's found at receptors. There's no special name for action potential. It's just action potential at the different locations. Then another thing we can still mention is that action potential, if we are looking at a neuron, we tend to see graded potential in cell body dendrites. But then for that axon, that's where you have action potential. So what have we captured in this particular video? The key thing we've learned is that whenever stimulus is brought to a cell that was initially at rest, the cell responds. But its response depends on the strength of the stimulus. If the stimulus was up to threshold, what will be the response? Action. If the stimulus was below threshold, what will be the response? Graded. So quickly, what is the definition of graded potential? Graded potential is the change in membrane potential due to a stimulus that is below threshold and it does not spread. It doesn't spread. But then it can summate. The response is usually localized. It does not obey all or none principle. It is also called receptor or generator potential. Tends to affect the dendrites and soma. That's dendrite and cell body. But when I look at action potential is also a response. But this time around, it is a change in membrane potential due to a stimulus that is up to threshold. It will spread along. It does not summate. It is generalized. That's everywhere we feel the impact. It obeys all or none principle. It has refractory period. So refractory period is those period where no matter the stimulus, the cell does not want to respond because it's already in an excited state. Then beyond that, we can now make mention of, we tend to see it in axons. So I believe that this video helped clarify the difference between graded potential and action potential. Stay tuned. In our next video, we'll be talking about action potential of different excitable tissues. Thank you very much for joining us. If you are new to this channel, ensure you subscribe, you like, and then share this video to as many people as possible.